here on a mission. Call it in, call it in, call it in.
You are listening to Navigating Towards the New Earth with Mel M. Rubin. So in this episode, I bring out Shannon Ryan. Shannon is within my wider water business community, and she used to be a nurse, and she gave up her life to follow what she truly wanted. She let go of a really good relationship that she just didn't feel right in, and she followed her heart against everyone else's expectations and everyone else's perceptions of the way that she was supposed to live, and she listened to herself, and because of that she has grown a hell of a lot. So with further ado, let me introduce you to this episode. It's absolutely fantastic, and I know that you are going to find golden nuggets in there to support you in your journey and inspire you in the continual forward movement of your life. Okay, so Shannon, let's get into the nitty-gritty and start off with your story.
All right, so it's quite a long story, but to start, about a year ago, I decided that I was going to take this leap of faith and jump into the unknown and fully just restart my life. So I was in this space of really suffering, of feeling immense anxiety, insomnia, depression, really stemming from not living my purpose, not living my truth, not stepping into my divine assignment. And I knew that there was so much more that I was here to do. And I was so miserable because everything I had been doing was for other people. I had been working a job in nursing, and, I never wanted to, well, I shouldn't say I never wanted to be a nurse. It was something I was interested in helping and healing people. However, my true passion was I wanted to be a stylist and a designer. I'm very artistic, but my parents told me, that's unrealistic and I can't do that. So I, followed their path. I followed the path that culture, society, my family, my partner, everyone else wanted me to do, and was this good girl, really seeking external validation for love. And ultimately that was because I didn't love myself. And I realized that, and it was this mission or this part of my life where, the part where I hit rock bottom was when I was working as a nurse in the pandemic, and I had bought a house that I never wanted a house. I never wanted a marriage or a house or any of that stuff. But again, I went against my truth, my intuition, and I had the connection with my intuition, and I had those silent whispers and pulls and things in my gut telling me, no, 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 don't do this. But I did it anyway. And to please others and to appease others and to make other people love me and to be liked and all of these things, And so one of the things that I had always promised myself was that I would never be put in a situation where all I did was go to work just to pay for things, just to die, and look back on my life and be like, what the hell was this even for? I have always had this really deep knowing and connection with the fact that life is short. It's fleeting. I've seen this as a nurse so many times. You never know when your last moment is going to be, when your last breath is going to be, and I've also seen so many people on their deathbeds and telling me their regrets. And all of them really are, I wish I would have lived life for me, and I wish I would have lived more. I wish I would have had more experiences and all these things. And so I have always known that I would never live that way. But yet here I was in this exact situation of being a slave to the system, of going to work just to pay for this house that I didn't want, just to appease others, and I was miserable. My physical body was breaking down. I was hospitalized multiple times for issues with my GI system, with my physical body, with my joints, all sorts of stuff. And I had this moment at work during the pandemic where I just had this download of you need to get out of here, all the beeping machines and the x-rays and the no light and the fluorescent light. And it was just I was a lab rat, and I'm already, barely getting by with my body and being just used as this, piece of machinery. And I knew at that moment, I was like, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to become one of these patients that I'm taking care of. And my life is going to blink before my eyes. And I'm going to be on this bed, closer to death. And I need to get out of here now. And so I really decided that I needed to get out of nursing, that I needed to sell my house, and I needed to break up with my partner because I wasn't being fulfilled, with the level of depth that I needed. And really, I was living in this comfort zone for so long. And I knew, and I've always known that the comfort zone is where your dreams go to die. And I wasn't dreaming, I wasn't creative, I was miserable. And, just obviously dealing with all these physical manifestations of, holding on to emotions in my body. And, as a nurse for so long, we were taught, it's not professional to express your emotions. It's not professional to cry, to have any of these feelings. And there was no real trauma debriefing when these serious, critical, life-threatening emergencies happened. And not only had I been dealing with my own trauma of my childhood and my life that had been repressed and suppressed, but also as an empath and taking on all this trauma of the hospital and of these people and having nowhere to go. Of course, it was living in my body and manifesting as physical symptoms and mental health systems and every other system, and I was just always in this state of sympathetic response of fight or flight, just not being able to calm down and really just feeling a threat to my safety all the time. I couldn't look people in the eyes and have deep, vulnerable conversations. I couldn't relax. I couldn't do anything. I was really, really dying. And there was a moment where I felt like my physical body was dying. My mental health was really, really terrible. And then I felt my spark, my soul, and it was that started to go out, that flame. And I was like, okay, now it's time to fight. Like, this is serious because this is my magic and I've got to, do some shit now. We've got to make moves. And so that is why I decided to, burn all of this down to the ground and really rise up from the ashes and restart my life living in alignment with what's important to me. And so I did that, and it's been so difficult, especially at the beginning. And of course, it's still difficult now. I'm not going to say it's, an easy journey because it's filled with lots of heartbreak and pain and uncertainty and, unknowns. And it's, navigating the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs is difficult, but it's so worth it, and I've been led on this magical pathway of being in the right place at the right time, listening to my intuition, being able to follow synchronicities and magic. And that's kind of where my life is now, just following my passions.
Wow. Wow. I'm blown away. I had goosebumps all throughout you sharing that. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
there's so many magical nuggets that you said that will flow and will bring out within the conversation. But I'm sure many of the listeners can really relate to your story in respects to you giving more to others rather than to yourself, and also not listening to our intuition because we haven't been trained to. Like, it's there, but we've been trained to play it safe, go with the norm. And it was the same for me. Like, when I was in corporate banking, I went there because it was safe, but little did I know it was sucking my soul until I actually started this journey. So what I want to touch upon is your intuitive guidance and your flame, because with the shifts that are currently going on right now and have been going on since 2020, at time of filming this, it's June 23. There's been a lot of activations within the collective, and the people's vibration have started to rise in their frequency, and their intuition's becoming louder. However, the egoic fears of the ego are like, no. So I want you to go a bit deeper into that and share more in respects to that journey, because with that being said as well, it's painted online that the spiritual journey, because listening to our ego is listening to our intuition is being conscious, is being self-aware with our feelings and our actions and all of that good stuff. And the spiritual journey is typically painted of, oh, love and light, be positive. And the idea is to get to the love and light. That's the idea. However, to get there takes a lot of pain and grief and hard decisions. So, yeah, I'd love for you to go into that a bit deeper in respects to your experience and your choices and anything else that may channel through.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, for a long time, I'd say like the past 8 or 10 years, I've been connected to my intuition and I've felt it. I've felt it in my gut, in my heart. I've heard the voice of my intuition, and I know that it's different than my ego. It's a silent whisper. It's not a loud, overtaking, noisy mind sound. And oftentimes I find that like my ego mind, when it's talking, is very fear-based, and it's very fast, and it's very intrusive, invasive, and it's relentless. It just keeps going and going and going, right? And yeah, my intuition is a little bit more quiet, more silent, more subtle. And for me, most of my intuitive wisdom and knowledge comes from my gut. And I found out recently, obviously that's through my human design, because I'm a 2/4 sacral generator. And yeah, it made so much sense, like putting those pieces back together and understanding that my authority is my sacral and is my gut response, and listening to that and waiting to respond. Another theme that has come up with that is that for so long I've been trying so hard. Like I've been very much in this masculine energy, trying to get somewhere, trying to make things happen. And I noticed that that's like, of course it's not going to manifest, because I'm in this state of constriction and I'm not in a state of expansion. I'm not open. I'm not ready to receive. I'm not in alignment with the universe and flow. And I'm just going upstream against the current. And of course it's not happening, but I've been so in this masculine, even when I would listen to the intuitive hits, I would still like go at it with a very masculine approach that was, in my opinion, comes from, society and also like my background as well, but trying to get somewhere rather than sitting back and allowing and receiving. And that's been probably one of the most, one of the most important lessons for me is to receive, to allow, and to be in this state of flow and to be in this state of surrender and consciously choose surrender every day, surrendering control and listening to my intuition and my truth and getting quiet enough to do that. Because I notice, for me to access that, I have to be in a regular routine, in a practice with my morning practice, be in a space where I do my gratitude practice, where I meditate, where I do all these things to keep my mind, my soul, my heart, all of it clear in alignment so that I can listen to the deeper intuitive nudges and knowings within my soul, within my heart.
I understand. Yeah, I hear that completely. And it's funny how you mention the resistance and how, things seem hard. Or not funny, it's interesting. So when I first started my journey back in 2017, so 6 years ago now, the first two books that I read were The Magic and A Happy Pocket Full of Money in conjunction with one another. And that's what really I was just like, whoa. Like I never really I always looked at personal development books as like, I don't need any help. I'm fine how I am. And it was only because of this entrepreneurial journey that I started reading it. And I'm redoing it 6 years later. This month, I started at the start of this month. And part of the book, I'm listening to A Happy Pocket Full of Money. It says, we always have two choices. We can either choose to go with our intuition and our soul's guidance, or we can choose to go with our egoic fears and choice. And whatever we choose is what gets put out into the universe. And if we are continuously choosing our soul, then that's when the magic happens. That's when the instant manifestations come. Whereas if we're choosing our egoic like fears or choices or laziness or whatever that may be, then that's when it puts out this like disjointed signal into the universe, and we don't tend to get what it is that we want as quick, because that resistance gets put out there, because our ego tends to like, you know, it's against our soul, it's against our soul's calling. So
Yeah,
when it
distortion.
comes, when it comes to like you and the magic that you said that you've experienced when it comes to the synchronicities and being in the right space at the right time, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that.
Okay. Well, let's see. So it first started, well, I decided that when I decided to sell my house and make this huge transformation and shift in my life, my main goal was I'm going to listen to my intuition for the first time and I'm going to do what's right for me. And my intuition told me to go to Peru and sit with ayahuasca, sit with plant medicine, be in the jungle with shamans. And I had received this download that I needed to do this about 10 years ago when I was in Peru. But I knew at that time in my life I wasn't ready. I had too much resistance and I was too much in control. And so I kind of put it in the back pocket of my mind and just was like, I released it and I was like, I know that when the right time is, it'll come. And same thing for this, I put that idea out there in the universe. I had the intuitive call to do it. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I just surrendered control to it. And literally 2 days later, I received the perfect place that I had dreamed of in my inbox. And I said yes. And so I went to South America, to Iquitos, and I sat with ayahuasca and wachuma, and it was life-changing. We were in the jungle. We got to go out in the jungle and cut down the ayahuasca vines, cut down the companion plants, put our intentions into the plants with our own hands, and brew the brew with the shamans. And that was just amazing, a beautiful experience. Then when I got back, I had always wanted to buy a school bus, a van, something like that. And I had money from selling my house. And I have this rule that whenever I receive an email from a classified ad, if it's in the city or town that I'm in, I'll go look at it. So it just so happens there was a school bus that was for sale. And so my dad and I went to go look for it, look at it. And we get there and my dad is there with me. My dad is a Scorpio. The dad of the girl who owns the bus is a Scorpio. They're both from Alaska. They become best friends. The girl who owns the bus, Sagittarius, has the same snake tattoo on her. She's also a yoga teacher, writes poetry, all the same stuff. It was just crazy. And then when it came down to the price, I got them down to 23,000. And I asked my dad, I'm like whispering to him, I'm like, I really love the number 22. And I always tip in, numerology, like 22222, and use those numbers and send that frequency out into the universe. So I, decided to be my normal self and say, is there any way I can pay you 22,222, 2.22? And the dad was like, this is too silly to ignore. This is bus number 22 from the school district, and it's painted under the black paint. And I was like, okay, wow. And so I bought this bus. Meanwhile, when I was in Peru, I got a tattoo of 1111. And I had just got back and then bought the school bus number 22. And then about a week later, I got offered a position to go back to Egypt, which I went to Egypt when I was about 16 and had this soul knowing that I was from here and told my parents, I'm never leaving here. This is my home. I belong here. Like, I'm staying here. And this was before any of my spiritual journey, but I just knew in my soul that like I, belonged here. Anyways, so I always knew that I wanted to go back to Egypt and it wasn't even on my radar, but it just came into my field. And it just so happened that it was on 11/11/22. I just got the 11/11 tattoo and bought the bus number 22, and it's in Egypt for 11/11/22 portal activation inside the Great Pyramid. And I'm like, you can't make this shit up. This is crazy. And And, you know, there's so many more. I've just been continually following them. A bunch more about this book that I actually met our mutual friend Mary Rose through in Egypt, and we bonded over this book called The Secret of the White Lions, or The Mystery of the White Lions. And it's about African shamanism and the white lions, and really esoteric and amazing. But then after Egypt, I was in I was in Florida, and I went to this, you know, new friend's house, and this guy showed up with a tiger shirt on and no shoes and curly hair, and I was like, in a van, in a bus, and I was like, this guy's gonna be my friend for sure. And I started talking to him about the white lions because he was in South Africa, and he goes, oh, no, I haven't read the book by Linda Tucker, but I was just there for a white lion shaman training with Linda Tucker and the white lions and met them all. And I'm like, oh my God, what? And then I went into his van, and he's got a full African shaman thing, and he's giving me tarot card readings with the white lions deck from Africa, from the white lions. It's like this snowball that once it gets the momentum, it just keeps going and going and going, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like, really, and like, since I've started following my heart, which was essentially when I started my business, just the magic just happens. Everything comes into place. And
Mhm.
that's, I mean, following our intuition, you met Mary and subsequently got involved within our Living Water movement, and then subsequently met me because I met Mary. So
Yep.
going towards that, and also going back to your life as a nurse and your care in respects to wanting to support people within their health journeys and their growth journeys, what was your feeling in respects to meeting Mary and learning about our movement when it comes to the water?
I mean, it was a full fuck yes right at the beginning, because just my intuitive knowing of the water and of the codes and the magic, both the Eastern, you know, mystical realms, esoteric realms, and the understanding of that and the deep passion for that, but also the knowledge of Western medicine. Like, I do have both sides, and that's kind of, you know, how I want to move forward, you know, in where I go from here, is integrating the both of them. But yeah, when I got introduced to the water, talking to Mary about the esoteric part of the water and all of that really, you know, just got me hooked. And also my Western brain was very intrigued and passionate about bringing this water to all of the people. You know, it's provides freedom, and also just reclaiming our health, reclaiming wealth, stepping into abundance. But my vision with that is really to bring this into the hospital system and to provide healthy, clean, conscious living water to not only the nurses, but also to the patients. Because part of the biggest struggle that I had as a nurse was my ethical misalignment with it. Granted, the only reason that I was able to stay in my nursing job for so long is because I worked in trauma, and, you know, I was providing life-saving surgeries and emergency medicine, which is needed, obviously. But I would never be giving people pills and all of this extra stuff that I think is completely unnecessary, like big pharmaceuticals and all of that. It's really simple when you think about it. It's just what we put into our body, you know, what we consume energetically, physically, the foods we eat, the water we drink, all of that. And it's very important to me to bring that autonomy back to the people, bring that health and all of the things that we deserve as human beings on this earth, bringing back our sovereignty, bringing back our power, and reclaiming our health.
Yeah, for sure. And that will be an interesting journey from my viewpoint of the system, the healthcare system, because it's majorly controlled by pharma, and pharma is so profitable because it keeps their customers sick through
Yeah.
the medication, because the side effects, which entails them to take more drugs and more drugs and more drugs. So I'm very interested as to how that would work out, because by incorporating the water into our lives, we're essentially healing ourselves from the inside out and getting ourselves off of all of these medications in time, when it comes to also fueling our bodies with the right food and also the right thinking and energetics and all of that stuff. So I'm curious as to how that would work. I'm sure it will work, because if you can see it, you can be it, you can do it, you can have it. So yeah, if anyone's listening and you have like ideas, please do get in contact with Shannon. I'm going to put her details in the below show notes. But yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. And Mary, who I desire to bring out on this show, she has so many water codes that really did activate me when I was around her as well. Information that I already knew, that I learned back in 2017, but I was at a different level of consciousness then. So like I knew on that level of consciousness and the information was here. But then her coming around and sharing all of this information again, I just felt the activation in my body, like the energy going around, and I was like, whoa. And it was actually Mary that she initiated the anchoring into my role as a New Earth leader, which subsequently led to this podcast. So I'm very grateful for that connection.
I love
Yeah, with that as well, I also want to go back and touch upon how you settled for this life that was safe and directed to you by your family and by the societal conditioning, etc. Because many people do it. I certainly did. And I was in a relationship that was very toxic. It was emotionally abusive. He lied to me continuously. I didn't feel good in the relationship. And because of the way that I had been trained that love was, I stayed in that relationship for nearly 5 years. And it wasn't until after I got out of that relationship, and it was like a few months after I started within our industry, that I started to realize, okay, well, wow, that wasn't good for me. And I started healing myself and finding myself and realizing, how against myself I'd been through staying in this relationship, which seemingly from the outside in looked great. I had this relationship, I had a flat, I had a car, I had a job, but from the outside in, it was great. But internally, I was crumbling because I wasn't following what I truly wanted. So yeah, I want you to share more about that part of you.
how I got there, or
whatever channels through, whatever you feel to share.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the relationship goes, I definitely didn't have nothing in my life was really bad or toxic. That's why it was so hard for me to leave, because he worshiped the ground I walked on. I had a great job that paid well, and I felt guilty for thinking the way that I did, or for being miserable in what I had, especially because of all of the traveling that I've done. My mom is a flight attendant, so I grew up traveling and living in Africa and being in poverty and seeing people that don't have their basic needs met, like water, food, shelter. And I felt so guilty and shameful for having this idea, or being depressed, or being anxious, or wanting more. I felt like I didn't deserve to want more, and I felt shameful that I wasn't happy with what I had. So I think that I stayed in it so long, and because it was comfortable, it was safe, and I didn't think that I was good enough to try something else. I also really felt like I wasn't going to get my family's approval if I chose something else. And that was one of the hardest things I ever did, because when I went through this shift and this transition, I told my mom and my stepdad that I was going to quit my job and sell my house, and they were terrified. And they're a little bit more supportive than my real dad. My real dad is very straight edge and very, he taught me to be super independent, need to get a job, need to get a career, need to go to college to be loved, need to be thin to be loved, all these things that I tried so hard to do and accomplish to receive his love, because he abandoned me and was not present in my life. So I always lived with that wound of trying to do everything to get his love, because I didn't have it to the level that I needed when I was younger. And so when I told him, I actually wrote him a letter, and it took all the courage I had, but the letter entailed, this is what I'm going to do. I know that you may or may not approve, but this is what I need to do for me. And I've never felt safe to really speak my voice. I've never felt safe to speak my truth or to live life for me. And I hope that you can still love me unconditionally despite you not agreeing with my choices and not having the accolades in the house and the all these things on the outside, superficial, that make society tell you you're successful. And his response was, brought up a lot of pain and suffering for me, because he did what he did when I was younger, with when it was all four of my parents having like an intervention on me and telling me what to do. And I think that had a lot of effect on my life, because I don't think I ever really had a choice or authority to decide what I wanted to do. I had four parents. I'm an only child of my mom and dad, and then they both got married and had their own families. So I had always been kind of this lone wolf in between, and had four parents always ganging up on me, telling me what to do and directing my life. So yeah, it was very difficult to gain the courage to say that and to risk being rejected. And it took everything I had to do that, because I did it very last minute, and I was going to just keep it on the DL and not tell him. And my mom even said, yeah, you probably shouldn't tell him because he's going to flip out. And, he did flip out. And so it was right. But I'm so glad that I did that, because in doing that, we have actually forged a much deeper relationship. And I believe that my letter, in telling him my truth, the next time I saw him, he actually, for the first time ever, we've had a very superficial relationship. I don't know anything about him until recently. And I thought that would be the way that it was forever. And in this last time that I saw him after this letter, he opened up to me and really said he was sorry for how he treated my mom, and wrote my mom a letter. And it just kind of was this ripple effect of positivity and healing for my whole family. And so it was really beautiful. And I know I made the right choice in doing that, even though it was so difficult and so scary. And I wanted to back out. But I knew that I wanted to go into my ayahuasca journey with a clean slate. I wanted to not have I wrote a letter to my partner. I wrote a letter to my boss. I wrote everyone letters, really atoning for how I didn't show up in my highest self and how I could have done better, and apologizing for my part in everything, and really wanting to show up to this medicine journey with a clean slate, and open heart, and no demons in there, because I didn't know what I was going to get into. I was like, maybe I will see demons. I don't know. But like, I don't want to have any darkness in there. I want to be empty and just ready and open to receive. And if it is dark, fine. But if it's not, great.
Wow, like I had huge truth chills there. And yesterday, it's also interesting because yesterday I posted a reel, and a quote on the reel, it was something along the lines of, to be truly successful, she has to learn how to land in her fullest expression in every way. And it really connected to me, because like for since I was young, I've always outwardly expressed myself, wore the clothes, did the hair, but I repressed what I felt inside for years. I repressed my heart, I repressed what it is that I wanted. And until I actually started to go after everything that I wanted and my heart's calling, and I started sharing what was going on within me, like my triggers, my boundaries, my feelings, my thoughts, my fullest expression, my relationships were very surface level. And I feel like that is the case for the majority of the population, who are not going after what it is that they truly want, and who are settling for what society is deemed successful. those material things, the house, the car, the marriage, the kids. And like when we turn our back on ourselves, and we tend to have this shallow surface relationship with ourselves because we're turning our back on ourselves. So how on earth do we get to know ourselves and what we truly want if we're going after everything that everyone else is telling us to? But then once we actually start moving towards what it is that we want, even through the scared, even through the pain, you know, like our stories are completely different. However, I followed my heart calling to come here to Bali. And for me to do that, I had to give up my life in London, but it wasn't suited for me, right? And that came with a lot of grief and a lot of pain and a lot of standing in my truth when my family was like, come back home, and all of this, like their fears projected onto me.
Yes.
And really standing strong in my truth. So for anyone listening that is currently going through these, like I must change, I must go towards this, I'm not happy, but the egoic fears of what's going to come with that, specifically like with everything that you've gone through, because like for me, with my family, I'm just like, I don't care what you think, this is my life. Like even if it was scary, I've just gone and done it anyway. And I always intuitively knew that I would be supported and accepted for my choices, because fortunately that's the environment that they built for me growing up. But for people that have experienced your side of things in respects to being directed in all which way and feeling as if they're not going to be accepted by their family, like what would you encourage them to do in respects to navigating, making that decision in choosing themselves, and also navigating the pain and the fear and the grief and everything that comes with choosing ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to choose ourselves because I had so much grief and these feelings of self-sabotage, right? Like there's no worse pain, in my opinion, than ignoring yourself and your truth. And that grief that comes from not following your truth and your soul when you know you should be is so terrible. And I don't think that there's any worse feeling than that. And so, but as far as it goes with families, I think that it's important to work through your trauma, your triggers, and to have open, honest communication that's not, you're not being triggered. Because I know for so long, my mom especially would trigger me, right? And I would respond with this really angry, agitated, irritable type of response, right? And obviously that's showing up because I hadn't done the work enough to, because it's not really her, it's my shit, right? And so the best way that I've learned is really to work on yourself and to have open, honest communication. And sometimes, you know, maybe you don't need to have the conversation right away. You can stand firm in who you are and what you want. And I think writing letters for me personally is a beautiful way because it allows me to sit with myself and really formulate my thoughts and my emotions and my feelings and articulate them in a really present, mindful, constructive way. And then, you know, there's no room for emotions, there's no room for triggers or and all of that. It's just a direct, I love you, compassion. I hope you can still see me. I hope you can still love me. I hope you can appreciate me. This is who I am, and I hope you can still love me. And just pour your heart out and be yourself and let them choose to read into that and receive you or not. But be okay with them not receiving you. Be firm in yourself enough and to be able to give them time, and maybe they won't respond right away, and that's okay. And what I've found is the best way to show them that is to do the actions and to show them in person that you're making different, that you're inspiring them by showing them that you've made changes and you're showing up as a different person, and you don't need to prove to them anything because they'll see it in your actions, right? So yeah, I think just, and sometimes holding back, not telling them, because a lot of times they're going to hit you with their fears, their limitations, their projections, and that can be super triggering, right? So a lot of times for me, I keep those nuggets to myself if I don't want to receive that yet. I'll just keep it in and be like, please stay over there, and I will evolve and reemerge when I'm ready. And I will show you through my actions and through the way in which I'm living and choosing to navigate my life. You will be able to see how I am showing up. And then you will know that I made the right choice. And that is exactly what happened with my family. They've seen the transformation, the evolution that I've gone through. They've seen how I show up now, how I'm not triggered by them. They see that they don't have to walk on eggshells around me. They see that I'm vulnerable. They see that I'm happy. They see the change. And so now my mom even said the other day, she's like, I'll never be worried about you again, and versus before, them telling me that they were worried was really triggering and made me really angry. And so I just had to kind of distance myself, and because I knew in my soul that I was going to be fine and I didn't need to convince them of it at all. So yeah, sometimes it just takes some space, do the work, and show them with your actions and with how you're living your life. And they'll see, and if they truly love you, they'll be overjoyed that you've made changes and that you're actually genuinely happy.
For sure. And the discernment is key as well. Like discerning where you are currently at on your journey in respects to how you're going to be able to respond to people's reactions to what you share. And also discerning the work that you get to do to evolve in the way that you wish to evolve, to clean up the energy within yourself so you're able to respond better to the people in your life when they project onto you. Because whenever people are projecting onto us, it's always everything to do with them and nothing to do with us. So the more work that we do, the easier it is for us to receive that. So it's discerning, okay, am I ready to receive that in a way that's healthy rather than like reactive and toxic? So yeah, like this is the importance of the work. This is the importance of learning how to validate ourselves and our experience, and like land into that love for ourselves so we respond from a place of love, from a place of compassion, from a place of understanding. So when it comes to that, what's been your journey in navigating through that for yourself?
I mean, I think what you just said, validating yourself, is so important because, like I mentioned previously, I had been on this journey of constantly seeking external validation for love, for approval, for being liked. And when I realized that the only person that I wanted to impress, the only person that I needed to love me was me. And if everyone else did, then that was just an added bonus. But being able to give myself the validation and the love and the support, being able to see myself, understand myself, love myself for exactly as I am, without needing any of these accolades or these titles that culture and society tells us we need in order to be successful. Yeah. I'm sorry, I think I lost the rest of your question.
No, you're absolutely fine. So how did you navigate learning how to love yourself and validate yourself?
Well, it's definitely not a journey that's over by any means. It's like I like to say, I'm a work in progress till the day I die. At least I hope to be, because that's going to mean that I'm continually learning, growing, changing, and evolving and becoming a better, more aligned, higher version of myself. It's the work is never over from what I believe. It's just a constant leveling up. And there's been so many modalities that have helped me to love myself, but really one of them that's been super important and calling to me is embodiment, because about 10 years ago I went through this self-love journey and a lot of healing work, right? And that was 10 years ago, and it was more of an intellectual understanding in my mind. And this next revolution, I would call it, 10 years later, is again the same lessons, the same journey, the same peeling back the onion to get to the core, but it's more of a intuitive inner knowing where I don't need to convince you of any of it. I don't need to explain to you. I don't need anyone to validate it. I don't care what you believe. I don't care if you think I'm crazy. I don't care, because I know in my heart and my soul that it is true for me. And that's been really part of my embodiment journey, is really, processing my trauma. I actually did a rebirthing ceremony for myself where I kind of went through and wrote down a lot of my different traumas. And I realized that a lot of them, the core of the onion of each of them, went back to safety and trust. And so I kind of reenacted and replayed these different scenarios in my life and sat with myself as the little girl, as the teenager, as all these phases of my life, and really saw her, cried with her, held her. Sometimes I punched pillows, and sometimes I screamed, and sometimes I danced. And being able to really do this life reflection, not only of the traumas, what I've realized recently when I did it again, just this past weekend in the Toltec medicine wheel, which was very interesting because the first time I did this sort of rebirthing ceremony work with myself, again, it was more of a superficial layer. Like, yes, I moved through and processed a lot of things, and it was really good for this journey of loving myself and embodiment. But this next phase of it was really more of a deepening. And the thing that made that deepening was the community that was there. So I was able to work through trust, work through fear of people not showing up for me, work through fear of not being loved or not being safe by going through these different healing ceremonies. Like, one of them was we had to put a blindfold on and walk in the dark with strangers holding us, and then submerge ourselves backwards into a body of water in the dark and have people hold us and catch us and rock you. And that emotional release was so powerful and beautiful. And I felt, rather than intellectually knowing, it was a feeling, oh, trust, like I can relax and let my shoulders down a little bit now, and I can let people in, I can let people love me, I can let people hold me, I can let people support me, I can relax a little bit, and I can be safe, and I can be loved, and I am enough. And all of these stories that, have been very deep in my psyche from childhood, that have been constantly working on, really were worked through on a beautiful level through community and space holding this past weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes back to that vulnerability piece as well. The more I found through my journey, the more vulnerable I've been, the deeper the relationships I've been able to build. And unconsciously, I started doing it. Like, when I first started my journey, I was just sharing my story on my social media, and like, through sharing my story and looking at it in that sense, it was very healing, because I would only share my story from an empowering standpoint in respects to what I'd learned through the books that I was reading, and the shifts and the transitions that I was going through. And then I was sharing it with my people and the vulnerabilities of like what I'd experienced in different aspects of my life, and being vulnerable for them to be able to connect with people. And this is a completely different like part of it. That's the kind of intellectual part of it. Whereas what you experience in the Toltec medicine was like, the release, because traumas become stuck in our bodies, emotion becomes stuck in our bodies. So to really be vulnerable in that sense, when it comes to taking away our senses and trusting the people in, like, strangers specifically as well, when all we've essentially been unconsciously trained to do and be is defensive and walls up because of whatever we have experienced throughout our life and throughout society, because of this unconscious way of living. But fortunately, we're now in a transition and a period in the human collective where so many people are doing the work. So many people are seeking this release of the negativity that's been built up through our own individual lives, but also the ancestral trauma that's being passed down to us through our DNA and through our lineages. Like, we're actually doing the work to break these generational curses and these traumas to create a better future for the planet, for our children, for future generations, and essentially creating the new earth. So, as we end this conversation, I have three questions for you that I ask all of my guests.
All
Um,
right.
First one is, what would your biggest encouragement be to the listeners right now? So, whether or not they're just starting their journey or are currently on their journey, what's the biggest encouragement that's coming through?
I think I just want people to know that they're not alone and that they're seen, they are heard, they are understood, and that they are enough just as they are. And to not give up on your dreams, to keep going, because really you have this one life, this one incarnation. It's so precious. And it really is such a beautiful gift. So, really, just keep going, follow your heart, follow your intuition, never give up on your dreams, your truth, your light, your spark, your magic.
Amazing. And what is your vision for the new earth?
Hmm. Well, I mean, my personal vision of it is what I desire is to live in a conscious community where we kind of all live off the land, where we reconnect to the elemental wisdom of the earth, fire, water, ether, where we are walking barefoot on the land, re-establishing our connection with Mama Gaia, with the animals, with the plants, utilizing the wisdom and the medicine of the earth with the plants, with the animals, with all of it, with people living in community, providing sacred space for each other to co-create magic and to all trade and share our ideas and to really be out of this system mindset where we are required to trade time for money, where we can take back our authority, our sovereignty, our power, and live a life of freedom and live a life that's in alignment with our truth, with the collective, and just really sharing and being in a communal space. Really, that's what I see.
Amazing. I love that. And I got goosebumps as you were saying it.
Mhm.
Perfect. And last question, in respects to your work and the role that you're playing in the creation of the new earth, can you go deeper into that and also share how the listeners can find you if they wish to?
Yeah, I mean, I still am at this place of discovering my dharma, my truth, my medicine and magic, but I know, and I think I get a little confused because I'm such a passionate, obviously multidimensional being, but I know that one of my codes is bringing childlike curiosity, bringing wonder, bring play, bringing lightness, bringing just joy to the earth, to the planet, bringing colors, vibrancy, textures. The way that I see the world is just so vibrant, so full of color. My senses are very heightened, and I love making strangers smile, making strangers laugh, bringing them bubbles or stickers, or just brightening up people's days. So I know that that's part of my dharma, and that's probably why it gets confusing sometimes because, I can just be in my joy and that's enough. And I have to continually tell myself that. But one of my other visions or dreams is really to bring this heart-centered styling to the planet, and it's a way of allowing our soul's expression on the inside match the way we express on the outside. So bringing more color, more vibrancy, more vitality, more creativity, more aliveness to the way we adorn our bodies, and then also sharing music, sharing the water, and just being an active change maker and really working. Also, one of my passions is also volunteering, and I have done that most of my life, and I would love to start a nonprofit and bring these water machines to the underprivileged people of Africa and give them their power, their sovereignty as well. So lots of things.
Amazing. And for any of the listeners, if you're interested in finding out about the particular business model that myself and Shannon are a part of, then reach out to myself or Shannon respectively, whoever you wish to go with, because it's a choice with the business, and you get to choose that. So like scope us both out, scope our energy, scope our leadership, and if you're interested in joining the business model so you can move towards your passion, so you can move towards your purpose. Like this business model that we're a part of, it's not necessarily a be all and end all unless you want it to be. But if you've got like other passions and purposes that you wish to explore with the time and financial freedom, like both myself and Shannon, like Shannon explained, she loves the fashion and spreading joy and volunteering. Myself, I love teaching and coaching. So you would have your own passion and purpose that you get to pursue with the time and financial freedom once you're able to break free from the system. So the options there, and you are supported. As Shannon mentioned, you're not alone, you're safe, you're held. It's simply a case of joining the people that you vibe with, that finding the people that you vibe with, because there are people out here doing the work, raising our vibrations and level of consciousness so we can support you on your journey. So all of the links for Shannon are below. And yeah, thank you so much, Shannon, for coming on and sharing your beauty, sharing your story. It's been such an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you. Before we end, is there anything that you wish to say on an end note?
Let's see. Just never stop shining your light, never dim your light to fit in or to make others comfortable. Live life out loud in all the colors, in all the vibrancy, in all the radiance, in all your uniqueness, and all your beauty, and all your brilliance.
Amazing. That was a great ending. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We will see you on the next episode.
Know that